All right, what's going on, Real College Life podcast? My name is Joel. I'm a senior here at UWSP, and I help lead the worship team. And this is Kiersten and Ethan, some of my great friends who I lead alongside. And we're just going to come and talk about worship a little bit today.
Let's go.
Let's go.
I'm excited.
But I feel like we gotta break up the clunkiness a little bit,
Yeah.
and talk about my most embarrassing moment on worship team. I had a smooth recovery though, but it was right when I started playing worship. I think I was like 14 years old playing at our church. And I had like this sick like lead line that I've been practicing. And I took like a step back and my wired in-ears pulled my music stand down. Yeah. And so like, and it was before the iPad days, because this was like 2017. So papers were flying everywhere. And like, I like trying not to let it hit my guitar. I'm like trying to hold it up with my foot. And luckily the other guitars like put it back up for me. And I played through it. It wasn't great, but I played through it,
Yikes.
I know.
That's awful. Kiersten, you go.
Okay, so I was on worship team my junior year of high school, and context, I'm an alto for people who understand vocals, which basically means alto. Yeah, good job. So it basically means like I have a really low voice for a female, and my worship leader, it was like his first week taking over for like Greenhouse, what we called like our youth group, and he was like, Kiersten, you're gonna sing "What a Beautiful Name" in E, and I said okay, and rehearsal went rough, and I was like, you know what, we're not gonna let that defeat us. We are going to go in. Also at the time, like there was a lot of like all the cool kids from my school started going to youth group, which is great, but I was petrified and scared of them. But I'm like, I got this. Okay, I'm not nervous. I get out, the bridge, like when it really ramps up, I voice crack for like a solid like 4 measures, loud and proud. And I still have not recovered. So every time I hear that song and hear the bridge, I just get a little scared.
That's why we have Emily singing now, right?
Yep. My second one was last year, I think, was it? I don't know. I think 1 week. 1 week I was playing guitar and my guitar strap broke in the middle of the song. And it was one of those songs where you can't stop playing acoustic and I was leading. So I, like a flamingo, put up my leg and kept on playing like professional.
Wow.
So.
I remember that.
Yep.
That's a classic too. That's a classic.
Yep.
At that point, you almost just kind of applaud you.
Yeah.
Like, you are way more talented than I am.
Oh, gee. Thank you.
Yeah. The only one that I could think of.
Only one.
Not okay.
Oh, all right. Okay. All right.
I've obviously screwed up many things.
Nope.
But I was thinking about this and I was like, I think the most embarrassing thing for me that I've like failed in worship is like for the first probably 3 or so years at least of leading worship. I was like, and this is a little more like heavy, I don't know. I was just doing it like basically for myself. Like I don't think I really got my heart in the right place, or understood both the specialness and the like the requirements of leading worship for a congregation at my church. And I wasn't like doing it all by myself. I was just a keys player, but I kind of just lived for the like the compliments after church. And I'm not proud of that. And it, there were mixed emotions. I was doing my best. But I think I had a heart posture that was doing it more for myself than I was for the approval of God. So, yeah, that was the one that I could think of. I've obviously missed chords all over the place and just flubbed things. But when I think of like the big things, that was what I thought of. And so speaking of things that, ways that you've missed the mark, I'm curious as we think about leading worship and being on stage and leading people in songs especially, what are ways that you guys can think of that we could be leading on stage and miss the mark? Like completely have a wrong heart posture, not even like musically, but where your, like I said, heart posture is. What are things that you guys can think of?
Yeah. So like 2 years ago, I did like the Bible in a year plan. And I like never read through the Old Testament before that. And there's just so many wacky things. But one of the things that like really stuck was there's like 3 instances where God like killed people because they were offering like sacrifices and incense to him that he didn't like call for, you know? And so there's not like a whole lot of context around these things, but I think it's really similar to what you're saying. There's these priests that I think they wanted to be noticed, you know, like I don't give only the sacrifices and burn the incense that God like called us to. I have others, you know,
Right.
I burn more. And I think God just kind of like smited that, like, no, that's not how this works. And so I've often like thought of that since that point, like, whoa, there's totally been times where it's like, oh, I play on worship team, I lead people in worship, but I'm going to take this guitar solo, you know, it's going to be sweet. Yeah. And I don't know. I think of that passage, and it's like, these weren't bad men, you know, their heart was in the wrong spot, and God like wants excellence. And we can't always deliver, we, you know, biff chords and stuff like that. But I think, and there's grace, but I think we should do our best in what we do to honor God always, you know?
Yeah. I think also like with that, like authenticity with that, like I think something that was really growing like as a worship leader too, like shifting from like high school to college and like growing my relationship with Jesus is like, I felt really convicted because I was like, oh, in high school I'd act one way when I was on stage leading worship, and then I'd act differently when I was like just in the congregation. And I think the right like, and it's just truly about being authentic. Like it's just having that heart posture, I guess, with it, like being authentic with it. And also like going back to like that heart posture too is like, I think best way to lead worship is constantly checking yourself. Like it's like, and it's, I'm a rambler. Like where, where is this heart posture coming from? Am I getting upset about something or frustrated about something because I like want it to go a certain way, or because it's gonna be glorifying to God? And I struggle with like perfectionism. Like for me, like I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe I messed up that chord, or I can't believe I did all X, Y, Z, but I was still authentically worshiping God, and that at the end of the day, that's the most like important thing. So it's kind of interesting, but yeah.
What about you, Ethan?
Let's go. Man, I just think there's a way that you can lead worship and make it all about yourself and looking for praise. And there's also a way that you can be afraid of criticism or afraid of messing up, so much so that you're kind of going the opposite way and still thinking about yourself alone, but so afraid that you're going to screw up. And I think this happens, especially like as you're starting to get into worship and helping lead things and being asked to step up in different ways. It's intimidating, and it's hard to say yes to those things when you maybe don't have all the experience, or you don't know what it feels like or what it looks like. And I would say most of the time my ditch is obviously trying to take too much of the praise and seeking that like positive affirmation. But I do fall into it sometimes, like, oh my word, if I screw up, like I really don't want to screw up. I love this song and I want it to be beautiful. And I can be afraid of, you know, oh man, people are just going to think we suck.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And so one of the most powerful like moments for me, I remember, as I was prepping for worship and feeling this kind of like tenseness, worry that I wasn't going to be good enough. I was leading worship for the first time at a new church that we moved to in Texas. And their worship, I really loved the way that they did things. I really loved the music. I loved the people who were doing it. I really trusted them. Saw the thought and the love that they had for worship and for the congregation. And I was being asked to step up and help, and I was super excited for that, but I didn't want to like let them down. And in the room before church was starting, we were back in what's called the green room, getting ready, making sure we knew like the set list and all this stuff all together. And the pastor who was preaching that morning came back and was asked to pray for everyone before we went out and got the service started. And like the very first thing that he prayed, like it was such a calm, like relaxing prayer. You said, Jesus, help us to know and remember that we're doing this from love and not for love. And that just like blew my mind. Yeah. I was like, oh man, that's right. That's why I'm doing this. I'm not doing this to earn something from Jesus or from people. I'm doing it because Jesus has loved me so much that I want to worship him. Yeah. And like nothing else in my life has compared to what Paul says, the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus as my Lord. And so like all my anxiety and like the worry of that didn't go away right away after that happened. I still felt it. Walking up on stage was still nerve-wracking, but it was the reminder that I needed to like recalibrate my heart, to put it in the right place, to lead in a way that would not be focusing on myself and instead on Jesus.
Yeah. I think what's crazy too is you just bring up a memory. I've never been like nervous about like, oh, is the Lord going to love this? You know, I've been nervous like, oh, is my worship pastor going to love this? You know, is the congregation going to love this? And I think that's just a great like reflection of who we are as worship leaders, that, you know, we are doing it for the Lord. We are doing it, you know, from love, not for love. Yeah. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to take a few backtrack though. We're going to backtrack there.
All right.
So we're all on worship team, but how'd we get here? How did you guys like join worship team, and like how has that journey progressed through college? And yeah, just honestly, I don't know if I've actually asked you guys this for
no, I don't. So I don't think
I'm actually really intrigued. So
okay, yeah, I'll start because I'm old.
Yeah,
but yeah. So I don't know. I started playing guitar in 8th grade when I was 12. That's 8th grade, 7th grade, something like that. It's close. Yeah,
7th grade, I think.
Anyways,
yeah.
Started playing guitar then. My dad wanted me to learn I wanted to learn an instrument. My dad said one that you can play at church. Yeah, I started playing guitar, and plus like this kid Tyler Vaughn played guitar, and I thought he's really cool. So it's like,
Come
yeah,
on.
for real.
Guitarist name.
Yeah, I know. Tyler Vaughn is so cool.
Yeah.
He had a twin brother who played drums. It's just
okay.
Anyways, so I was like, oh yeah, I'll learn guitar.
Okay.
And then like when I was like right away, they started me in youth group worship. You know.
Yeah.
Because it's youth group worship. There's not, you know.
Standards are pretty low.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you work at a church, you know.
Yeah.
And so then, like, when I was 14, 2 years later, I started playing for, like, main worship team at our church. And that was super fun. I laughed when you mentioned the green room because that was like, oh, man. My favorite memories of worship are like just the fellowship from the green room.
Oh, come on.
Like you're just like talking about like movies and like all this random stuff. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't get to talk to people like twice my age that much, you know?
Yeah.
And people that you like really look up to and respect.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
and
they
so
care about me.
I've learned so much about like worship and like gear and like movies from the 80s and all that stuff from all these guys. So it's just so fun.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of became like my thing. I never like took it to much heart because I was like 14, 15, you know, kind of like a cool place to play guitar. And then, it kind of morphed into like, okay, we're changing churches, but let's check out this worship team. And once we moved churches, I really had a lot of like creative freedom because I was a little bit older. I know a little bit more about how to play. I've done this at a different church, so I get to bring that stuff here. And me and the worship leader, Brandon, really just like, we were best buds, you know, and he let me take a lot of like control on things, which was awesome, and just like really built me up and made me learn to like love to worship more than love to play guitar during worship, you know? And so I think that was just like a really monumental thing. And then I came to college and I went to Woodlands once and was like, yeah, I'll do that. That seems pretty cool. And it was before I found out about Crew. So I talked to them, got on their worship team, and same thing. Matt was just like, dude, like, let's go hang out, you know?
Yeah.
And it was like the first like discipleship I've experienced. Where it wasn't like crazy intentional, but it was like, you're a young guy. I've done this like once or twice. Let's hang out every once in a while. And then it morphed into going on a mission trip where Jesus like freaking knocked me out,
Come on.
and just like, just like gut punched by the Holy Spirit. Like, you need to turn your life around. And I was like, whoa, you're right. You are so right. And it just like sparked this fire. And I came back and like loved crew, and was like, hey, Joy, sorry I haven't been around at all, but I'll play electric guitar as much as you want. Cause like, And so it was just also really cool to like worship on a mountain in Alaska. And
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug. All right. Whenever we sing Christ Be Magnified from the rivers to the mountaintop, like literally did that there. Like literally did that at the Russian River and on Flat Top Mountain.
Dang.
Go to Alaska. Okay. But yeah, that's kind of my journey. Now I lead the worship team here. So
Let's go.
Get to hang out with you goofballs. But yeah.
Kiersten, what about you?
So I did choir and theater growing up. And I was like, okay. Like I didn't realize like, also, fun fact, I didn't know I was like decent at singing till 8th grade when my choir teacher was like, you should audition for like art or stuff. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah. So shout out to Mr. Lee for that. But I was like, okay. Like I went to like youth group a lot and like worship team like for a long time. Just you had to be a high schooler, so you couldn't do that. So then my sophomore year, I auditioned and I was on team, but I think I had a really hard relationship with music actually because I was so like I had to be perfect all the time. So for me, worship in high school was all about being perfect. It wasn't about like doing the right thing. It was like, or worshiping God. It was like, okay, did I sing this right chord? Did I do XYZ? Which was really interesting. So end of senior year, I kind of had like a hard time. So I actually like didn't want to associate anything with music. Didn't want to do like anything at all. So the last thing I wanted to do was anything related with music. And so then I came to Stevens Point and I'm like, okay, I think actually Kyle was driving around. He's like, hey, we need someone to play acoustic guitar. And I'm like, I'm not singing, but I'll like, whatever. Like, I guess I'll like, and I walked up. Also, I'm extroverted, right? But I am so scared of meeting people for the first time.
Bro.
So someone's like, I think it was Libby actually. So I walked up to Libby and I was like, hey, so like, who's in charge of like worship? And she's like, oh, like go talk to that guy. So I walk over to Joel and I go, are you in charge of worship? And he goes, nah. And then he turns around.
I did do that. I remember that. Bro.
I just felt so embarrassed. Then you're like talking like, okay. And then
Dude.
Cornrows talking to Lane. I'm like, okay, maybe these people are actually chill.
Yeah.
Maybe like, I'm like, I'll audition. Like, I guess I'll sing a bit. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And then you're like, hey, you're on. And I'm like, oh, cool. Like the next week, I'm probably just singing backup, playing some chords. You're like, hey, you're leading this week. I'm like, oh, okay. But I'm not going to get too involved. And you're like, so fall retreat. And I'm like,
come on.
I remember too, you came up to me and we did like the audition and you two auditioned at the same time with Emily Stover.
That's right.
shout out Emily. Yeah.
I know. That was just so fun. I remember that was the first audition I've ever held.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is so easy. This is great. I love this. Dude. And me and Elena were just like, this can't be any, like, it's so good. It can't be any better. Yeah, it didn't stay like, but it's okay. Anyways. And then, like, we had our, like, whole band meeting. I was like, these are our new people. And you came up to me after and were like, I only want to be on once a month, maybe once every 2 months. And I was like, oh, dang. Okay, that's fine. And then, like, you played your first crew and you're like, I can do this whenever. And I was like, bro, what? But, yeah.
Part of it was, like, I also, no, it was just a really hard, like, time, I guess, like, being so hard because I didn't, like, feel like I was authentically worshiping God. I felt like, I think part of it, too, is, like, I wasn't really tight with my bandmates, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't know these people that well. I know, like, 8, and that's it. And, like, everyone seems scary, but, like, really.
You're saying at home, right?
Yeah, at home. Yeah. But no, you guys are really scary. I hate being on band with you guys, but no, it's been y'all are cool, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Mr. Ethan?
Well, like I said, I started leading I did the youth group band thing too. I started that in like 6th grade, I think. I've been playing piano since I was 4 though.
That's wild.
Which is like such a gift. Mom, if you're listening, thank you so much for making me do that through all the times I didn't want to go to piano practice. It's so worth it. Yeah, so I started that super young. So I've been playing piano for a long time. Started in 6th grade doing youth worship band. Enjoyed it. Then kind of got called up to do the regular Sunday morning band in my church. This was during COVID. So one of the women who had been leading worship on keys wasn't able to go because of COVID reasons. And so they asked me if I wanted to help. So I started doing that, and then helped there maybe once a month or so, for, I want to say 2 years-ish, yeah. And then we moved to Texas, me and my family, right before my senior year of high school. And I didn't lead worship there right away because the style, it was a lot more like modern contemporary, but thoughtful. It wasn't just like, what's popular right now. It was what's popular right now and also theologically beautiful, and right. And the talent level at that band was just so much higher. I was like, I think I want to do it, but I don't think I'm good enough yet. And so I ended up actually taking lessons in Texas from one of the guys who was doing keys on worship there. Did that for a few months with him. And then he told me that he thought I could totally do it on Sunday mornings. And so recommended me to our worship leader, and I did an audition with him. And then one of the other women who helps lead worship there, she's also a worship leader. And that was awesome. And then I started leading there, and like I do that like once or twice a break when I'm able to be back in Texas. But yeah, and then I do it here.
Yeah,
because it rocks.
And I remember on the river float your freshman year. So was that 2 years ago now? Yeah, yeah. Okay, so it was last year. Whoa.
Wow.
I remember floating down the river, and there's this dude in a tube with sunglasses on, and I was like, "What's your name?" He's like, "Oh, I'm Ethan." I'm like, "Ethan, where you from?" He's like, "Texas." And I was like, "Whoa, tell me about that." He's like,
"What can
actually, I grew up on the east side of Wisconsin, but now I live in Texas, so it's my personality." And I was like, "Okay, cool."
It's my personality. Dude, Texans are so annoying. They literally do make it their personality.
Let me tell you, I can't even eat barbecue sauce around you without getting some like Sweet Baby Ray's. Don't even get them started.
Disgusting.
Anyways,
man,
I'm like, I don't even remember how it came up, but I started asking you about your hobbies, and you like subtly dropped you played piano, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool. I lead the band here," and you're like, "Oh, that's cool. That's cool." And I was like, "Oh man, we gotta like." I even remember being like, "Gotta disciple this kid. Like, gotta get him like involved right away. Get him on the band." We're always searching for people, and especially musicians. And so
I feel like that is a question I asked like every single person. Welcome week, is you play any
instrument? Yeah, you play any instrument? No, I sing though. It's like, yeah, we know. No. Anyways, and so I was like, "Dang, this is cool." And I was like, "How long you play for?" And you're like, "Since I was 4." And I was like, "All right."
What can I say?
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, I would love to ask you a question, Joel. We are looking forward to the UW Worship Palooza coming up very soon.
Oh yeah.
As of today, this is the 6th. And Worship Palooza is going to be on the 21st. It's a super fun worship event that we hold at Stevens Point, where a bunch of different people from crews all around Wisconsin can come and join us at Stevens Point. And we have a bunch of different members from other bands at other crews who join us too, and we do a big long worship set and get to enjoy that night all together and kind of see like, oh, there are people like running hard after Jesus in Eau Claire or Whitewater, and super fun. And so there's a whole ton of planning and stuff that goes into that. But I'm curious, what would you say is the reason why we do it in the first place?
Worship Palooza, it actually started long before our time.
In a galaxy far away?
Kind of.
Oh, okay.
In like Wisconsin Rapids, so kind of.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah. So yes. So Ryan was telling me like back in his day, they would just have like spontaneous worship paloozas. And so he told me this in like October of 2023. And he's like, so like November we should have one. And I was like, whoa, I don't really know about that. Like, I don't really want to do that. Like you said, I like to plan.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of like, we've talked about this, like worshipfulness in like really well thought out, you know, not saying like spontaneous is bad, but like, I think less distractions lead people more. But anyways, Ryan was like, you don't like that idea? I was like, I do not like that idea. And he's like, okay. And so like a month went by. And I'm like, you know, we could do this. Like, we could so plan a worship night with like a bunch of students. And at first, it started as like, it would just be fun to know there's, like you said, believers in Eau Claire or believers in Madison who want to like worship as like a united body. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, we can do this. And I kind of gathered core 4 people on our band. So I was like, at least that way, if somebody from Eau Claire is not that good at drumming, we got Drew. I know Drew can drum.
Shout out Drew. Yeah.
And so like my initial issue was like, there's only like 7 spots on a band, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, it'd be really cool to have like rotations. That way we can get people from other schools. A lot of people would see a familiar face. And then maybe more schools can come worship together. And as I was thinking about it, I was like, whoa, but there's probably somebody on this campus that knows somebody from lacrosse, you know?
Yeah.
And doesn't come to crew. But they're like childhood best friends. They go to different schools. If we can get like that person excited and coming, they can probably reach someone on our campus for Jesus that we don't have the ability to reach like that. Mm-hmm. And so once I thought of that, it was like, whoa, this has a lot more weight now. And not like I have to plan this perfect.
Right.
But like, I want to get as many people here as possible so that we can reach as many people as possible. And so it's super cool to see like that actually happen.
Yeah.
And like someone this year, Lily, who's singing, like she's leading in worship. Her first event was Worship Palooza last year because Georgia, who sang, like invited her and was like, you love music. I know this, like Jesus thing isn't really your thing,
Right.
but you got to check this out. Like I'm going to be there. At least we can see each other. I can stay at your dorm. Like it'll be a fun weekend, you know? And so she came, was like hit by the Holy Spirit and was like, whoa, this is cool. Like, I like this, you know? Didn't give her life to Jesus on the spot. But Georgia like saw that change in her and she told, you know, Lily told Georgia, like, I like this. So she was like, hey, I'm going to start looking for a new church. You want to come with me? Wow. And she was like, yeah, I like the music at that, you know, one worship night. It'll kind of be like that, right? And so she started like church shopping, heard the gospel, and like, yeah, now she's leading. That's awesome.
Wow.
And winter conference, like people came up to me and was like, hey, you did that worship night, right? And I was like, yeah, I did. And they're like, that's so cool. That was like, that's where I accepted Jesus. And I was like, whoa. Like, I don't know what school you go to. I don't know who you are. I didn't share a KGP with you. Like, that's just so humbling and like so cool. And that was one person, like, who knows how many there are. And so it's just like, whenever you read in the Bible about like a group of believers coming together, it's like noted, like Holy Spirit worked, you know? And there's a lot of times it's not noted in the Holy Spirit worked. But it's just so cool to know, like, if we get a room of people on our secular campus to like worship Jesus, like there can be some really, really cool things happening.
Come on.
I think it's really cool to think, like, right now I'm like living at home. So I go to Point Crew sometimes, but I've also had the opportunity to go to Green Bay Crew, and tonight I'm going to Oshkosh Crew. It's so cool to think about like how many, like on Thursday, I just think about like how many students across the U.S. or across the world are meeting on a Thursday night or Tuesday night or whenever you're hosting crew. And the fact that we get to do that all together, like as one state and as just one crew in the state and get together is just the coolest thing ever. Cause you just look at the room and there's people from everywhere. And it's just, it just makes me happy. It's
so cool.
It's so cool.
Let's go. I'm excited for it. I think there's also a way that people could come to this expecting a concert and expecting a bunch of fun, hype, you know, get you in your feels, worship songs. and just come for that. And I think there's a way that we could also lead with that mindset of wanting to provide that for people. I think that's also something we could miss out on too. Or not miss out on, we could miss if we aimed for that. And I would hope that we remember that we're worshiping Jesus first and foremost. And like, it's not for us, you know. I might leave and feel like it was a, you know, fun, all right night. But as long as I was focused on worshiping my Creator, and the one who like told me all I had ever done, like the woman at the well talks about, come see the man who told me all I had ever done. If I'm focused on that, that is the goal. Yeah. That I would worship my Creator, and the one who gave his life for me. And anything more than that is just bonus. Right. And it's a gift to feel good and feel close to Jesus. But I think realistically, that's going to be like maybe 10% of people who come to this night. They might feel really impacted. Yeah. A lot of other people will enjoy seeing friends, or be searching and not know what they feel about Jesus, or maybe they had someone invite them, but you just want to see what it's like, see what Christians getting together kind of looks like. And my hope, and I would hope that anyone who sees this and who knows Jesus would be praying day by day leading up to this event, that God would show himself to anyone who comes. And for the people that do know Jesus, that we would be focused on him and not on ourselves. And for the people who don't know Jesus, who are doing the hard thing and coming and checking it out, that they would have soft hearts, and that Jesus would become like real to them, and not that he's not real, but that he would show himself, and that they would see that it's like, he's the best thing we've ever found, and nothing that we could have wanted, or nothing that we were looking for before we knew him was satisfying us until we found him. So
yeah, that's super cool. Another reason, you kind of brought it up, why I love doing Worship Palooza, is because people might think like it is a concert.
Yeah.
You know? And that's not a bad thing. And I think that's why worship music is like so powerful to so many people. Yeah. I can even think of like many secular songs that I'm like, man, this one impacted me at a specific like moment in time, you know? Yeah. And so I think being on a campus that has a very large like music program, it might just be like interesting. People might want to check it out for that. And I think of like Paul, when he's in like the Areopagus in Acts 17, he's in like a Greek temple that is worshiping like a Greek god. And he like says, I know that you are men who are like spiritually searching. Right. And then let me tell you about a God you haven't heard of before. And it like grasps them because of their background. And I think like if we're leading worship at Worship Palooza or on a Thursday night or at a church, I think there's something special about it because it does like grasp so many people. Yeah. But
let's go.
Let's go.
I'm so excited for it.
Me too.
It's going to be fun. I got a bunch of buddies who are coming from Green Bay area.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I just want to invite you to Worship Palooza in 15 days. Bring yourself, bring your friends. We're going to have a ton of fun. We're going to worship Jesus. We're going to go closer in community. We're going to have impactful times of prayer. And yeah, just learn what it means to worship the Lord in a group of college students. If you haven't done that before, you should come check it out. We'd love to see you there.
In 15 days from now, not from probably when you're hearing this.
It's on the 21st at 8 p.m. in the UWSP alumni room.
That's right.
So we'll see you there.
Let's go.